Alright, so the first thing here is we need to find VS Code. So we can search VS Code on Google and then we get VS Code. So we need to download VS Code because that will be our code editor. Now, what we just need to do is to click download for Windows and then we're going to get that. So it's downloading right now, but I already have VS Code, so I don't need to download it. So I'm just going to cancel the download. Then now that my download is already cancelled, the next thing that I have to do is to go back and hit my VS Code since I already have it downloaded. So I'm just going to open up my VS Code right now and it's loading. So it's up now, and then I'm just going to expand it to make it bigger and then try to zoom in a bit so that you can see it clearly. Now the next thing I need to do is to create an open folder, which is I'm trying to create a new folder so that we can start our project. So when you get to VS Code, you're going to see the open folder option, and then the next thing you're going to do is to create a new folder. So you have to create a new folder. So you just go to a new folder and then you create a new folder. So I'm just going to give it a name, HTML5 class. I think that works well, and then I select the folder. So after selecting this folder, the next thing that I have to do is create a new file. And remember, our file is the HTML5. So I'm just going to create the HTML5, which is going to be index.html. So here, all I'm just going to do is write HTML, and then I have the HTML5. So I'm just going to click on that, and then all I need to do now is to get rid of the, rather than making it smaller, I just need to get rid of the sidebar. So I'll just explain what everything is. So doc type HTML, it declares what it does is that it declares the document type and version of HTML being used, which here it is HTML5. So this represents the root element of the HTML, which is the lang en. Then what the meta does is it contains meta information such as the title and character. What the viewport does is the viewport, it sets the viewport for responsive design, and then the title is important for SEO optimization. So that is everything that has to do with this. And yeah, so previously we did an introduction to HTML where we talked about figuring out VS Code. So today we'll be looking at H1, which are the header tags. So this is H1 and this is hello world. So what this is going to do, I'm going to show you in a bit. Now what we need to do is to understand that the header tag helps us write our header. So we have it from H1 to H6, and for the H1 it helps us it helps us categorize our header tags. For instance, we want to use the H1 for like your basic maybe your logo, and then you have your H2 for like other things, which will include things like your subheaders and all the rest. So we're going to download an extension known as Live Server, and this will help us. Now mine is already installed, so you have to install yours, and this will help us launch our website on the server. So we're going to listen to this on ports, on whatever port it gives to us. So let's see, now it's listening at port 500, which is 5500 or 5500. So that is the header that we have there, which is hello world. So we can, just like I said earlier, we can have H2, and what you're going to see, the discrepancy you're going to see here is that your H1 and your H2 are going to have different font sizes. So your H1 is going to be quite bigger than your H2. So here we have Hallo Welt, and it simply means H1 but in German. So H2 here, we're just going to see how that looks like, and here we have Hallo Welt, just like I said, which is hello world in German. So you can see the discrepancy. The hello world is bigger than the Hello Welt, and this is because H1 has a bigger font size than H2, which supports the categorical or hierarchical nature of these tags. So H2, H3, we're going to write machine board, and you'll see exactly what I meant. So this runs from H1 to H6, probably more, but that is what we're going to be looking at only. So we have machine word, and you can see that it is smaller than the Hallo Welt that we have above. So going further from here, let's see what we have again. So we can include, let's see if we're going to include the H4. I don't think we're going to include the H4. So this is how you write a comment in HTML. You use this syntax and then you write a comment. Now this comment is used when you want to write something in your code and you do not want it to be active, or you do not want it to work in the real code. You just want a situation whereby it will just be something that talks about something. So this goes on until H6. The more you go, the smaller this goes on to H6. The more you go, the smaller the wordings become. So that is exactly what we have here. So I think that is all. Alright, so we've talked about H1, H2, and H3 in a previous video. Now we're going to talk about the p tag, and what this p tag is the paragraph. So here we say the world is run with software. So basically what this is just trying to do here is just representing like a paragraph. I remember that HTML is a doc, which means a document. So this basically means that all of these tags here helps us identify what we are putting in somewhere. So for instance, this p tag is trying to tell us that whatever is inside here is functioning as a paragraph. So we need to understand that the p tag is very useful whenever we want to write things that probably we want to describe something in our web page. Now we can use the break and the br tag. What the br tag does is that it helps us go to a new line. So for instance, we want to go to a new line instead of continuing in one line, if that is good English. Instead of going on in one line, let me use that. We want to start from a new line. So that is basically what this is all about. That is what the BR is doing here. So here we say the world is run with software and everyone makes use of it. BR. We use our smartphones to chat and listen to great music. So that is what the p tag is doing for us here. It is helping us understand that whatever we're putting there is working as a paragraph. It is like a paragraph. So we have a header and then we have our paragraphs, which are like our notes. So we put it in there and then it helps us make things, it makes our HTML more readable and more correct. So the break, just like we discussed, you can see what it did. It broke it off from the world is run with software and everyone makes use of it, and then that is it. Alright, so previously we talked about the p tag. Now we're going to look at unordered list and ordered list and why they are important for us to know. So first of all, we're going to start with the UL, which is the unordered list. And what this does is that it helps us list out things without having to, number them. So most times you are going to get a bullet point for it. And when we're using the unordered list, we have to use the list. So this is how you write your list tag. And remember, we talked about the opening, and I haven't talked about the opening and the closing tag. So the first thing you are seeing there is your opening tag, and then the one with the backslash is your closing tag. So that is how you do it. So we have our list and then we have rice in there. So what we can do is we can press Shift Alt down, the down arrow, and then we get that. So the next thing we're going to include here, we're going to include beans, and then we'll just quickly write the rest of the things right in there. So we have fish, we have curry, and then what's going to be the next thing? We can include bread. So basically, when we have this, let's see what we have now in the browser. So we have all of these items listed out. We have rice, beans, fish, curry, and bread, and we can see that they are in a list, but they are unordered, which means that they are not numbered. So that is how we make use of the unordered list in HTML. Now another kind of list that we have is the OL, which is the ordered list. Now this ordered list is actually very nice because it helps us number whatever thing we're having. So previously we did the Shift Alt down with our list items. So now what we're going to do here is we're just going to write just like what we did before. So let's see how it's going to look like. Alright, so now that we have that, the next thing that we're going to do is to view it. So we have the rice, the beans, the fish, the curry, and then the bread. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to say, okay, we have the rice, beans, fish, curry, and bread, and it is numbered. So now that we have that, so that is what we have. So that is going to be what we have for the UL and the OL, and yeah. So previously we talked about the UL and OL. Now what we're going to talk about is we're going to look at DD, DT, and DL. So it's like a description list, right? So we want to create that. So let's see what we have. So the first thing we have is our DL, and then what we need to do is to write the DT and then the DD. So what the DT is the description term, and then the DD is like the description itself. So that is all we have. So we have rice, and then we say a white grade used in cooking. So the DL is just like your list. So it's kind of listing out, things that you want to see. So just like what we have here. So you can see that rice, a white grain used in cooking, and then we have that right there. So the next thing we're going to look at is, I think that is basically all about it. So we just have another term, which is beans, and then we say a tender green vegetable. But I don't know if beans is a tender green vegetable. So basically, this just tells us exactly what the D is all about. So we have the DT, we have the DD. So that's basically, so you have a tender green vegetable. So here we can just say bread, and then the next thing we're going to do after that is say that, okay, we have a DD, and it says a type of bread made from flour and water. So that is exactly what we have. So now we can simply just view that, and then we can see a white grain used in cooking, a type of bread made from flour and water. So that is basically it. All right, so previously we talked about the D, DL, DT. Now what we're going to look at is we're going to read everything off, and then the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to start with something interesting. So we're going to start with a div. So we're going to talk about divs, spans, and HR. So let's see what that is all about. So a div is a block level element, which means that you can put things inside. You can put things like your h1, you can put things like your p tag. Your span is an inline element. So they work differently because your div, basically a lot of websites make use of divs, and when we get to semantic HTML, we begin to understand that we can't use divs all the time. We need to use things like sections and all the rest. So if you look here, we have that. So basically your div is like a block level element which you can put other stuffs inside. So what we have here now, we have the style. So we can style this, and by styling this, what we observe is that we're going to see how this actually looks like a block level element, which is like a box. So basically I'll just give it a border which is 2 pixels solid, and then what we're going to see is we're not going to get it because the styling is wrong. We're not supposed to have an apostrophe right inside there. So I'm just going to try to figure out if that is the case. If that, okay, now I just need to get rid of the apostrophes inside, and this should work. So when we check, we see that we now have the box. So you can see that it is inside of a box, and this is very useful when we are dealing with, when we start CSS. This is going to help us understand what is going on, especially when we are doing things like flexbox, or we are doing layouts. So the next thing we're going to look at after this is we have the world is beautiful, and then span is an inline element, which means that it is not a block level element. It can't function as a block. So you basically put in things like text inside of it. You can't put in other tags inside of it. You could, but that would be totally wrong for you to do. So we have so is Mars. So basically that was what was written in the span, and that is what we have here. So the next thing we're going to look at after this is, let's see what we have. So the next thing we're going to look at after this is, yeah, basically everything that we've talked so far, which is the div. So we can have the HR now, and now what the HR does is that it gives you a line. So you have this line, that kind of separates the hello world, the world is beautiful, so is Mars from pizza is delicious. So all right. So we've talked about the div and the span and all. So now we're going to talk about something else, which is the anchor tag. Now the anchor tag serves as a link from one HTML page to the other, and this is very useful in HTML. This is one of the most useful tags in HTML. So we're just going to write our comment just like we've been writing before. So that's how you write your comment, and here it says we're going to write the anchor tags, the anchor tag. So now the next thing we're going to look at is and then we have the href equals to we have the apostrophe sign. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to create another tag, and we're going to call this tag the about.html. So by calling this about.html tag, what we're simply going to do here is just to create another HTML5 document, and by creating this HTML5 document, we can simply just put our about page, and here we just write h1 and just write the about page. So the next thing we're going to look at in the index.html here is we're going to put in the href, and then the href is going to be the /about.html. So we click on it, and then we just put in go to about page. So that's just how it's going to be. Go to the about page. And now that we've done that, the next thing we're going to look at is what we have here. So when we click on it, we see that we're going to the about page, and that is the usefulness of the anchor tag. It helps us navigate from one page to the other. So the next thing we're going to look at here is we're going to look at different ways that this makes a whole lot of sense. So now this is how we can use an external link. So we just have the Google link here, and we can put the HTTPS there, and then when we add, okay, let's just add something so that we can see. We need to add something right inside in between the opening and the closing tag. So here we're just going to say Google, and then when we go here, we can click on Google, and by clicking on Google, what we have is that we are going to an external link, which is google.com. Now the next thing we're going to look at here is, so that's what we have. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at So we have a href, and then we have targets, and then underscore blank. Now what this does is that when you click on the web page, when you click on it, it's going to take you to a new tab. You're going to open a new tab. So that is why we have the underscore blank for target equals underscore blank. So you see now when we click that, we are going to go to an entirely new tab. So that is exactly what it helps us to achieve. So that is that on it. So that is all about the anchor tag. Alright, so we're done with the anchor tag. Now we're going to talk about ways in which we can use more HTML semantics. So we're going to, for best practices, we're going to make use of our nav. Okay, the nav. Now let me just show you how that looks like. So here it says we used our comments, and it said for best practices we can use the nav. All right, so say for best practices we can use the nav. So now we have our nav, and then we have the UL, we have the LI. So instead of we just having like just the UL on its own, we have our nav. So that makes it look much more better, and it gives our HTML more readability, and it makes everything look structured and, you know, something that follows the books. So that is exactly what we have. So we have the nav and then the UL. So if we come here, we just have what it looks like before, but then by using the nav, it makes our HTML much more authentic. So that is all. Alright, so another thing we're going to look at here is we're going to look at how we can add IMG tags. So what we can do now is try to read everything off, because we are starting a new chapter. So here we're going to see how we can add the IMG tag, and what the IMG tags helps us to do is it helps us to add images to our web page. Now I'm pretty sure you've seen a whole lot of web pages out there, and then you see that a lot of them have the IMG tag. Now when you write the IMG, you are going to see to get the source. Now inside of the source, you're going to have the inside of this source folder. So here we're going to have, let's just give an alt. Now what the alt does is that just in case the image doesn't load up properly, what happens is that you get that instead of the image, so you don't have nothing, so it's just not an empty space, so they know an image is there. So we're going to go to Unsplash, and we're just going to download any random image that we see. So we're just going to figure out what image we see here, and then we're going to download it. And oh, I like this one, so let's just click on it and let's download it. So we're just going to download a small version of it, so we don't want something too large. So here we have small, so it's downloaded already. And then the next thing we're going to do now is, so now that it is downloaded, the next thing we're going to do is to just go back and see exactly what we're going to achieve with it. So then the next thing is we're going to try to create a folder. So first of all, let's see what we're going to do. So we're going to see how we can create a folder, just like I said. So we're going to create a folder, and then we're going to give it a name. So I'm just going to call it images, and then right inside here I'm just going to copy that, and then when I copy it and when I move it right inside that image folder. So by moving inside the image folder, I have that. So I'm just going to rename it to give it a very small name. So just to, you know, give it a name that, you know, looks easier for me to, you know, read and all. So I'm just going to call it abstract, because it looks like an abstract painting. And then the next thing I'm going to do is inside the source directory, I'm going to put /, and then you have your images, and then you have the abstract.jpg. So basically when you have that, you're going to give it some properties. So I'm just going to change the alt now, and I'm going to call that abstract. So abstract image rather. So now that we have this, the next thing we're going to do, now that we have this, the next thing that we can do here is we can give it a width and a height property. So by giving it a width and a height property, we get to define the size that we want it to take in our web page. So here we have the width of 200, and then we have a height of 200. So I can see now that by doing that we have a size that is small. So basically that is exactly what we have. We have a size and we have the size that is small. So we have width 300 and then we have height 300. So when we save it, let's go back. We can see okay. There's something I want to introduce here, which is called a fig caption. But this is not the right way to actually use a fig caption. Most times using a fig caption has to be inside of a figure. But I just want to, put it out here because it has everything to do with images. So it is related to images. So here we have the abstract image, just like we've said earlier, and then we have it below the image tag. So that is pretty much almost everything that we need to understand here. So let's just see what we can do to just wrap up the whole thing. So that is just basically what we have. We have the abstract image, we have the width, the height, we have the image img tag. Alright, so previously we talked about the img tag. So now we're just going to talk about the figure and the fig caption. So let's see how that is going to be. So let's see if that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So let's figure it out. So yes, we have the figure, and then we put in our image just like we had before, dot slash the images slash abstract. Remember, we have two slashes in there. We have to get rid of one. So now that we have that, the next thing we're going to look at here, so we call this abstract. The alt is going to be called abstract. So the next thing that we would look at here now is we need to figure out how we are going to add our fig caption. But first of all, we're going to give it a width and a height. Yes, we're going to give it a width and a height. So the height is going to be 300 and then the width is going to be 300. So inside of the figure, we're going to have a fig caption. So inside there, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to say an abstract image. So when we do that, let's see what we have. So when we come here, when we open up a live server, we have that. So this is the right way to actually use your image. You can embed it in a figure and then add a fig caption, which we just talk about what that image is all about. So another thing we can talk about is how we can add audios to our HTML. So we have the audio, we have the audio syntax, and this is how we can add audios to our HTML document. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to add something called the controls, and then we're going to add autoplay. And what this does is that the controls helps us start the audio. They are basically more if you read MDN docs about that. And then the autoplay is very self-explanatory, which means that once the browser mounts, you're going to have the audio playing directly. You're going to have the audio playing. So we have the source, which we have the src. So we have ./audio/Joeboy feats whatever song that is. It's an Afropop song. So what happens is that if you write this in your VS Code, what you're going to get is you're going to get it playing, and it's going to play on its own. So that is exactly what is going to happen. So let's see what we're going to have next here. So just like I said, we're going to have to include a type, and then the type is going to be of type audio, and we're going to have MPEG. So basically, when you include all of these, you are ready, and your audio is going to be displayed. So it's going to play, and then it's going to be on autoplay, which means that once it mounts, you're going to get that. So it isn't very clear, but you can see that it is also, you have like an autoplay. It isn't very clear, but you can hear the sound. So it's on autoplay, and then you can get the sound. Alright, so previously we talked about audios. Now we're going to add videos. So how do we add videos to our HTML? So let's see how we can add videos to our HTML. We've been able to add audios. Now we're going to see how we can add videos. Now to add videos, we're going to use the same, we're going to say video, and then we have the controls. So we can give it a width property, and then we're going to have 640, and then the next thing we give it a height, and then we're going to have 360. So that is how we give the video stuff. Now the next thing we're going to do is to have a source. Now how do we go about the source? We're going to write source, and we're going to write source, and then we're going to now include the source of the video. So let's see how we can get the source of the video. So the first thing we're going to look at is we don't have any videos here, so we have to get one. So how do we get a video? We just create a folder, and then we call it, let's create a folder, and then we call the folder videos. So here I'm just going to create a folder, and then the next thing I'm going to do is to say video. So the next step is to download a video, obviously. So let's try to figure out a way to download a video so that we can include it there. So let's try to figure that out. So we have a video, so let's just copy that video and paste it there. So this is the video that we have, and then the next thing we're going to do here is to we're going to play the video, right? So by playing the video, we see that the video is working properly, and then the next thing is to include that video into our right into our source. So we have that, and then we've included it already. So we save that, and then let's see how that looks like so we give it a type. So what type are we going to give to it? Let's see what type we're going to give to it. So we say video, and then we say mp4. So when we save it, let's see what is going to happen. So let's head to the browser, and let's see what will happen to this video. So you can see now that it is playing, and we've been able to add a video into our HTML. So we can include autoplay. So by including autoplay, that means that it's going to autoplay when we open the browser. So now it is autoplaying, and we are not there to click on the play button before it plays. So previously we talked about adding videos. Now we're going to look at how we can we talked about adding videos. Now let's see what we're going to do today. So we just concluded with videos. So the next thing we're going to look at is adding tables. Okay, we're going to look at adding tables. So tables are kind of important when you want to, you have a couple of things, and then you want to actually include them in your website. It could be the menu, like a menu item of food and stuff, or maybe it's a restaurant website, and you want to show all of the menu, all of the things you have. So first of all, you write your table, which has an opening and a closing tag, as you can see. And then the next thing you're going to have is your TR, which means your table row. And then the next is going to be your TH, which is your table head. Now, inside of the table head, you can start putting in your stuff. Now, this can also be useful when you are trying to, when you have a dashboard and you're trying to, have a bunch of users that are on your website. So you want to categorize them based on certain things, based on their information. So here we have TR, and then we have your TH. So the TH is going to be table head, which is going to be your company, your contact, and then your country. So now below we are going to have a table row again. So now let's see how this works. So we have for table row we have TD. So the TD now has, so the TD here we're going to start giving the name. So we have the company name. So here we're going to have Alfred Futterkiste. Let's see what we need to add. So we have TD. So the company name is Alfred Futterkiste, and then here we have Maria. So we're going to give the contact. So we need to speak to Maria Anders, and then the next country, the country is going to be Germany. So company is Alfred Futterkiste, the contact is Maria Anders, and country is Germany. So the next thing we're going to look at here, so let's open with live server and let's see what we're going to have. So here we have the company, which is Alfred Futterkiste. We have the contact, which is Maria Anders, and then the country, which is Germany. So next thing we're going to look at is we have TR, then we have TD, the same way we had it the first time. So let's start looking at what that is going to give to us. So here we have so let's look at the name. So this is going to be, so let's just write the name, Central Commercial Moctezuma. So that's going to be the company name, and then so TD is table description, which describes what we had in the header. So for each row, which is our table row, we have 3 rows. The first row had the headers. The second row now has the first fields for the header tags, which includes the company name, the contact, and then the country. And then so this is what we have for the last field, the last row. So we have the company name, we have the contact, and then we have the country. So when we start working with CSS, we'll see how we can style this properly to make it look good. So that is what we have there. So this is what we have in our code. So that's the table row, just like I said. It has the company name, it has the contact, and then it has the country. So those are the for the first table row we have the TH. So for the second table we start filling it up. So for the first one we have Alfred Futterkiste for the company, Maria Anders for the contact, and Germany for the country. For the second one we have Central Commercial Moctezuma, we have Francisco Chang, and for the last one we have Mexico. So that is all. Alright, so previously we finished up with talking about tables. In today's video we're going to look at how we can make use of forms. Now in HTML we make use of forms because we need to get data to the database, and by getting data to the database we are able to have user information. So we're going to start with form, and then we're going to get an action, and in that action, that is where we're going to put in whatever link that connects to our server. But for now, since we are just working with HTML, we don't need that. So what we can do is we have the label, and then we say for name, and then we have name. So here we have the input, and then the input we say type is of type text, we have an ID, and then we have the name. So let's try and write this ourselves so we can get a grasp of it. So we have label, and then the for, we're just going to say it is for name because the input is going to have a name called name. So that for is because it is for name. So the input is going to have a a name called name. So the type is of type text. So look at other types later in this course. Then the next thing we're going to put in there is the ID. So we have the ID, which is name, and then the name would be name. So, and then by adding the required, we make sure that this form would not submit unless the input is done. So let's check. Let's open a new tab and let's open with live server. So here we're just going to open up a live server, and then we're going to see what is inside of this. So here we have the name, and then when we click on it, we see that we can type into it. So this is how we create an input field in HTML. So this can take in user details and store them in our database for us. So let's try to create more. So we have label, then for. So inside of the for, the same method, we are going to say for what. So let's see what we're going to say for. So we can say for email, and then we have email. So since it's for email, our input is going to have a name called email. So remember, the type is not going to be of text, it's going to be of type email, and then we're going to give it an ID, which I'm going to call email, and then the name is going to be email. So by doing this, let's now see what we have. So when we try to click on that, you can see that we're already having the email suggestions below this. Alright, so previously we talked about forms. Now let's see what we have here. So there's something else that we want to include, which we did not include before. So we're going to have an input field, and then we're going to call it of type submit. Now this is very important because this is what we will need if we want to have a button that we can click on to send that information to the database. So here we have the submit, and that is what we're looking for. So we can see that everything works exactly the way it was before. So that is it. Alright, so we have some things that we want to work on today, and I'm just going to comment them out. So here we have a form, just like we've been writing before, and then we now have an input field. Now this input field is going to be of type radio, and it's not just like every other input field that we've been making use of before. So you're going to see exactly the difference between this input field and the previous input fields that we've had. So here we're going to give it a name of Fav language, and then the value is going to be HTML. So the label is going to be for HTML because the label is going to be for HTML, and then we just put in the HTML. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a line break, and then let's see what we have. So if we check, we're going to see that we have a radio button. So this is how you can add a radio button in your HTML. So by putting the BR, which is the line break, we're going to move to a different line entirely. So let's see what else we can add. So we've done that. Now we're going to say input, and then the type is going to be what? Radio. That is the idea. We are creating radio input. The ID is going to be CSS. The name is going to be Fav language, and then what we now have is we have the value, and then the value is going to be equal to CSS. So now that we've done that, we're just going to have the label. So we have the label, and then the label is going to be for what? It's going to be for CSS, and then we have CSS. So here we're just going to, so here, that is what we have. So we're going to have the line break, and let's see what we have. So you can see now we have the CSS, which we can click on, and we can click on the HTML. So this is how we can make use of the radio buttons in HTML. Alright, so we just finished up with forms, that has to do with radio. Now we're going to talk about forms that has to do with a checkbox. So now let's see what we have. So here we're going to say input, and then the type is going to be what? Type is going to be checkbox. Now we're going to have an ID, which is going to be vehicle, and then we're going to give it a name, which is going to be what? Vehicle 1. So basically value is going to be bike. So here we're just going to create a label for this, and remember we have to create a label, and it says for, okay, let's write it ourselves. So you have label. Remember, when you write it, then you get better at it. It's better that you write it than just copy and paste. So we say label forward for vehicle 1, and remember we're just going to say I have a bike. So that just makes everything work out. So what is the next thing to do after this? We're going to include our line break, and let's see how that looks like. So the next one is going to be an input, which is going to be of type checkbox, and we're going to have an ID, and that ID is going to be vehicle 2. We're going to have a name, vehicle 2. We're going to have a name, and we're going to have vehicle 2, and then we're going to have a value. So we're going to keep input the value, and the value is going to be car. So here we're just going to have the label, and we're going to say for vehicle 2, and in between the label we're going to have I have a car. So we're going to include the line break, and let's see. So below we're going to have the same thing. We're going to have so this is exactly what we want to check out. So let's see. So you can see this is a checkbox, and that is another checkbox. So this is how you can have input fields that are checkboxes. Sometimes when you go to a website and you want to agree to the terms and agreements, then you're going to see that they use a checkbox. Now that checkbox is coming from using an input field that is of type checkbox. That is exactly why we are seeing what we are seeing here. So this is how we can use a checkbox input field. Alright, so previously we talked about checkboxes. Now let's see what we're going to have for today. So here we're going to have an input, and it's going to be of type text. So let's see. And then we're going to give it a name. So what name should we give it? Let's try to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out a name that I should give it. So I'm just going to give it a name of text, and we're going to give it a label, and the label is going to be for text, and we're just going to put in what we want to put in. So we just say text, and then here we're going to include our line break, then we're going to include the text area. So now what the text area is all about is that it is different from your input field, which means that with your text area you can write long texts. For example, a message that you want to send to the customer care concerning an issue that you have. So here we have the text area, so we're going to include the label for the text area, and it's going to be for what? For description, and then we are going to put something in between the label, the opening and the closing tag of the label. So here we're going to include a placeholder, and let's see what the placeholder is going to be. So here we're just going to say enter your description, and let's see what that is going to give us. So let's just wait and see. So text, name is text, and then what we have here, we have the placeholder. So we're going to say, for the placeholder, we're going to say enter your text. So let's see how that looks like in the document. So here I say text, and the text says enter your text, and this text area is saying enter your description. So here we're just going to write description so that we can make everything look equal and even, just like the text. It's like the label for the text. So for the text, you have entire text. For the description, you have entire description, and you can see that I can write a lot of things inside of it. So that's basically it. Yeah. All right, so let's see what we're going to do today. So we're going to have an input field, and then we're going to give it a type, and the type is going to be button. So we're going to give it an on click. So by giving an on click, let's see what that would do. So here I'm just going to say on click, and let's see. Okay, I just gave it an empty string. When we start JavaScript, I'm going to talk about what an empty string is all about, what a string is all about. So here you can see that we have an input field that is a type of button, and that is why we have something like that. So you can see here. So let's see how we can implement. So let's see what it is. So here we have on click, and then I'm just going to say alert and hello world. Oh, we have an error. I think I should use a single apostrophe as opposed to a double apostrophe. So here, instead of using double apostrophes, I'm going to use single apostrophes and then hello world. So when we do that, and then when we check, when we click, we're going to see that we have an alert which is saying hello world. Now that we are all right, so previously we made mention of the form, and then we talked about the input field that deals with buttons. So now let's see, we're still going to work with input fields, but we need to know what we're going to do today. So what are we going to do today? Let's try to figure out what we're going to do today. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at other things that are important for forms, and we're going to just quickly have a quick view of it. And then what we're going to look at, we're going to see an input field that is of type file, and let's just see how that looks like. So we're going to say type, and then the type is going to be of type file. And basically what this does is that it helps you browse through your computer and get data from your computer. It could be a photo, a video, or just document. So here what we have, we're just going to give it a name, which is just going to be my file, and we're going to give it an ID, which is going to be my file. So let's just try to make that together. So the next thing we're going to do afterwards here now is to give it a label. So let's just give it a label, and the label is going to be my file, for my file. And then here we're just going to say, what are we going to say in here? So here we're just going to give it a label, and the label is going to be select a file. That should be it. So let's see how that looks like. So basically when we click on choose file, we're going to see that we can now select any document that we want to select right here. So you can see that it works. So this is how you can create something like that in HTML. Alright, so we've been working on forms. So today we're just going to look at some kind of forms, and let's see how these forms look like. So let's just quickly, so I'm just going to read off that, and let's see what we have. So I'm just reading that off so as we don't have any mistakes. So right inside the body opening and closing tag, we're going to say form, and then here we're just going to say text area. Now inside the text area, we're going to give it a name, which is text, and then we're going to give it an ID, which is text, and then we're going to give it something called a max length. Now by giving it a max length, we want to decide how much information, how much data that this text area can actually accept. Now we're going to give it a placeholder, and this placeholder is going to be enter a text. And by doing this, let's see. So here we have the enter a text, so text area, so we have that. So we have like a bit of problem here, but it's not really a problem because I think it has everything to do with the reloader stuff. So let's just see how we can figure this out. And in a very quick time, in a very small time, we're going to see what exactly is going on. So here, what we have here is we just have the entire text, and that is it. So we just have to complete the text area, and let's see what is happening here. So I think there is still a bit of an issue, but it will be fixed in due time. So I just decided to create a start afresh, create a new HTML boilerplate. So just like what we've been doing before, the same pattern, we're going to have the text area, and then we're going to have the name and then the ID, and then we're going to put in the max length, which is 50, and then let's save it and let's see exactly what is happening. We still have that. So basically what I'm going to do here now is try to refresh the whole thing and see if if it works and all. So I'm just trying to get rid of the form and just see if that's just going to work on its own. And so by refreshing, I realized that it's gone, and then we can just type and let's see exactly what is going to happen. So you can see now that when we get to 50, because you can also only accept 50 characters, and now we've gotten to 50, it's not going to go again. So that means that the max length which we've given it to be 50 is working. So the next thing we're going to do here is, so we have the text area, which is name and ID and stuff. So we can include our form now, and then here we just have, so here we can just type in stuff, and then we see that this is all the stuff that we can type in, and when it gets to 50, that is the end. So the next thing we're going to look at here is we're going to so let's see what we're going to do for today. So we're still dealing with forms, and we're going to see what the required is actually meant for. So here we're going to have a label, and then we're going to say for, and we're going to have name. So we're going to have an input field, and then we're going to say what type of input field do we have. So we're going to say an input field of type text, and then the name is going to be what is going to be the name. So the name is going to be name, and then we're going to have something, we're going to include something here which is going to be required. So we're going to have required. Now by having this required, what we're going to now see is that even if we try to submit the form, it's not going to submit because it is required that we input something in that input text field before we are able to submit this form. Else it won't be able to submit the form to the server or to the database. So that is exactly why the required symbol is included there. So this is important because we do not want a situation whereby we submit our form and then we have something empty in the database. So the type is of type submit. So let's see exactly what is going to happen. So let's just check it out. And then when we click submit, it tells you please fill out this field, which means that you have to fill out the input field before you can send the data to the database. And right here, I'm just going to try to look at it, and then this is exactly what we have. So that's basically everything that has to do with that. So we've created the required field. So let's now see. So we're going to quickly look at yeah, this is exactly what we have. So basically that, and we have this. So we have June 2009, so which means that we can select a date and we can select a month. So that is the label and that is the input field. Now if we go below, we have other things that we want to look at. We have for quantity, so let's just see. We can't really treat everything, but we're going to treat the ones that will be needing the most. So let's just see how. So you can see I'm just trying to show you some of them just in case you want to, you know, put it down or maybe write it down. These are some of the input fields you can have. So we're just going to take another one, which is the input, and then the type is date time locale. So let's just quickly look at this, and yeah. So here we're just going to get rid of this form field. So by getting rid of this form field, we have this here. So we've just included the time date locale. So we're going to give it a time of time date locale, a type of time date locale, and that is exactly what we are going to have when we do that. So now that we have that, we just know that okay, this is what we have. So this is nice. So let's just look at it. So here we have the form, we have the label, and then we have the input. So label is a birthday time and stuff. So let's see if there's something else we want to include here, or probably we should write it out ourselves so that we can get a grasp of it. So the label is birthday time, and then right inside of that we're going to have the birthday. So we're just going to say birthday, and then we're just going to put date and time, and then close our parentheses, and then we put the two dots. So basically what we're going to have now is we're going to have the input and then the type, and then we're going to have the date time locale, which is what we need in order for us to identify this as a date time locale input field. So we have the ID, which is going to be birthday time, and then we have the name, which is going to be what, birthday time. So by having all of these, we can then proceed. So input is birthday time, name is ID, birthday time. So label for birthday time, birthday, date and time. So that is exactly what we've talked about before. We decided to do it ourselves. Alright, so previously we talked about other stuffs. Now we're going to look at semantic HTML. And how do we work with semantic HTML? Now, semantic HTML just means that we're trying to follow the laydown rules, the laydown principles for structuring our HTML. And this has a lot of benefits, especially for SEO optimization. So for instance, we want to have a header tag. Okay, we want to have a header tag, but we don't just want to put a bunch of divs everywhere. So rather than having a div for that, we're going to have a header, and then inside of that header we're going to have a h1 tag, and then we're going to just put in hello world inside of that h1 tag. So that is exactly what we have. So now that we have this, let's just see how it looks like in our browser. So when we open with live server, we're going to see exactly what this is. So here we have hello world, and you can see it still looks the same as if we had used a div, but then the discrepancy between that and this is that by using a header tag, you're going to have SEO optimization, and it means that is going to be good for your website. So you can look up what SEO optimization is. So that's just like a little task for you to know why this is so important. So we have the footer, and then we're going to now create a section. Now for each page that we want to create, we're going to create a section, and this section is going to be a place where we put in our, this is where we have the section, where we have different sections for our page, and then we have a footer, and then here we're just going to say this is a footer. So I'm just going to close up the footer, and I'm just going to close up the section, and then the header. So you can see we have the section, the header, and then the footer. This is like using the right stuff for it, instead of using just bunch of divs everywhere. So now that we have this, so this is exactly what we are going to be looking at. This is exactly what we are dealing with. So this is basically what semantic. All right, so before we talked about just simple semantic HTML. Now we're going to look at other semantic HTML. So you see the footer represents closing content like copyright or legal links. The header contains introductory content and navigation links. The main holds the primary content for the document. Now the articles, we can say, which represent self-contained content like blog posts or articles. And then the section, we can say, groups related content into thematic sections, and then the aside contains tangential or complementary content, e.g. sidebars. And then the figure here groups media content, e.g. images, charts with related context. And then the fig caption here, it provides captions for content inside figure. So basically this is basically all of the the other semantic HTML tags that we are going to be looking at. So basically I'm pretty sure that we might try to see how all of this integrates inside of our code. So now let's try to see what we can do with them. So first of all, we're going to start with an aside, and let's see, we're just going to say, let's just see what we can put inside of this aside so that we can know exactly what this aside is for. So I'm just going to say this is a sidebar, and let's just try to see exactly. So this is sidebar, you don't really see any more change, but when we start CSS, and I implore you to purchase the CSS, course, because the CSS course is going to be as detailed as this HTML course, which means that you're going to get as much stuff that you've gotten in your HTML, or in this HTML course that you've completed. So here we have the main, and then inside of the main, so let's just see what we need to do. So we have our main, and inside of this main we can start putting in our section, right? Because it said the main holds the primary contents of the document. So I can write my main, and then inside of my main I can simply put a bunch of sections inside of it. So now that we know that, I'm just going to say welcome to my website, and that is for like my first section, and then I'm just going to put something inside of it. So I'm just going to say we make fresh I'm just going to say fresh stuff. So we make fresh hot pizza for you. So I'm just putting something simple, and we say we make fresh hot pizza for you. So this is just what we have here. So this is like the first section, and welcome to my website. So now that we've done this, the next thing we're going to look at is let's see what we're going to look at. So here now, let's see what this is going to be. So all right, so we're going to have article, and inside of this article we're just going to, so remember what we said about article. We said represents self-contained content like blog posts or articles. So that's exactly what I'm showing here, that the article represents what I just said, self-contained content like blog posts or articles. So now that we know that, so we can just go back to our article, and then let's just put a bunch of stuff inside of it, and basically so inside of this article, we're just going to add some some stuff inside of it. So let's just add stuff inside of it. So I'm just going to say h2, and I'll say this is the story of a fish. I'm just going to say this is the story of the old woman. Okay, this is the story of the old woman. So of an old woman. So this is the story of an old woman, and let's just see. So here we have a p tag, and I'm just going to so I'm just going to include a p tag, which she used to be a teacher, but she decided to become a pizza maker. So basically just random stuff. And then so this is just trying to tell us what this is used for. So that is basically all on semantic HTML, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So this is it. All right, so let's see what we can actually do here. Now here we have a div, and this div has what we call, so here we have a div, and then I'm just going to rewrite everything out and so that you can see yourself. So I'm just going to have a div, and then we're just going to give the div an ID, and the ID we're going to call it product card. So we're going to give it what we call a data ID, and I know you might not really understand this, but when we start working with JavaScript, this becomes very clear. So here we're going to have a data ID, and then I'm just going to put in 1 2 3 4 5, and then we're going to have something called a data category. And then data category, I'm just going to give it I'm going to give it electronics. So we have data hyphen ID, and then we have data hyphen category. So we have electronics. So inside of it, I'm just going to put in product name. So I'm just going to say product name, and we're going to just have smartphone. So let's just, okay, now I have a problem with the name there, but that's not a problem. Let's just do what we have to do. We can change that later on. So here now we can simply just use the script tag, which is for JavaScript, and the const product card is just basically storing the element, which is document.getElement by ID, which is product card, and then console.log product card.data.id will impute the 1 2 3 4, and console.log product card.dataset.category is going to output what electronics. So basically that is exactly what the data attribute is all about. So by using that, we can simply, just like you see, we have here, we have the data, and then we have the ID, and then because the ID is equal to 1 2 3 4, the output is 1 2 3 4 5. And for data categories, since we have category, it's going to output electronics. So by having this, we are able to understand how this works. So let's see where we go on from here. All right, so the next set of things that we want to look at here is, so we have the product name, and then product name is smartphone. So here we have product name, and then we have inspect. So in the inspect, I'm just going to go to the console, and you can see that when we console.log, we have 1 2 3 4 5, and then we have electronics. So which means that this is actually taking the data attribute that we're putting inside of our div. So this works pretty well, and you can see that this is exactly how it works. So this is all about data attributes. You can look up the docs, MDN docs, or W3 schools if you still have more things to talk about. All right, so let's look at something called disabled. So we have a div, and then we have a button. Now we have the disabled in there. So the disabled there is just trying to tell us that this button is disabled. So we have a div, and then we have a button, we have disabled. So let's just quickly write it ourselves, and let's see how it is. So we have a div, and then we have button, and then inside of this we have disabled. So I'm just going to say disabled, and I'm just going to say submit. So by using that, I'm just going to check what that looks like. So here you can see that my button is disabled, and if I can't click on it, so no matter what I do, it's disabled and you can click on it. So this is important whenever, for instance, we click on something, for instance the submit button, and we don't want to click on it again, so we can just say if it has been clicked on, then we just disable it. So another thing we're going to do now is what we call the read only. Now if we want an input field to just be read only, which means that we want this situation whereby we just want people to be able to copy something in the stuff, we can just put in a value which is read only text. You can put in anything you want to put in, but then it's just a read-only text. So let's just do it ourselves. So we have the input, and then once we have the input field, remember the input field is a void element, and what a void element is, I'm just making mention of it, is that it doesn't have a closing tag. It only has an opening tag. So here we have the type, and is of type text, and then the value is just going to be read only. So we're just going to have read. We're going to have read only text. So you're going to have read only text. So read only text. So I'm just going to put read only text, and then in front of it we're just going to have read only. So this is what we have as input field, and the next thing we're going to do now is just to see how that looks like. So let's just check it out and see how it looks like. So I'm just going to go back to my document, and you can see that this is a read-only text. So if you try to, so here now, this is what we have. So if I try it, I'm just going to, I can't type in anything, so I'm just going to copy that. So I'm just going to copy it, and then when I copy it, the next thing I'm going to do is, so I'm just going to do that, and then it's copied, and then we're just going to come here, and then here we're going to have the read-only text. So read-only text, and that's exactly what we have. So let's just check it out and see exactly. So that works. That we want a situation whereby the users that do not understand this get to understand it. And let me explain vividly what that means. So if you come here, you're gonna see what it says here. So it says Arial label is used to provide a text label for an element overriding its visibility content. It's commonly used when an element doesn't have visibility text, such as icons or custom components. So that is what it does. So if you look here, say without Arial label, screen readers might not understand this button. So that is exactly what we're doing here. So let us use our live server just like we've been using before, and let's see what that looks like. So if we come here, we see that there's nothing in here. So let me just right inside here, I'll just say submit. Okay, so we should have the submit button. So by using that, the Arial label, we are able to say, oh, this is submit form. And if you see what is here, if you come here and then you see what is here, it says the button shows only an icon visually. The screen readers read submit form because of the Arial label. So we don't even need to put in the submit. They can understand what it is. So here we have role. Role defines the purpose of an HTML element. It helps assistive technologies understand the element's function, even if the element doesn't follow standard semantics. So see how it works. Rule overrides the default semantics of an HTML element, and then I say you can explicitly assign a role to custom components or elements that don't have inherent semantics. So here you have a button represents a clickable button, dialog represents a dialog or modal, alert represents an alert message, navigation represents navigation regions, progress bar represents a progress indicator. So here we have a custom div styled as a button. We have div, role is button, tab index 0, on click, handle click, click me. So if you look here, say div, the div element is styled as a button but isn't inherently a button. So adding row equals button and tab index equals 0 makes it behave like a native button for screen readers and keyboard users. So here what this is normally a div doesn't really function as a button, but if we place this and then we say this is a div and so we say role and we say equals to button, it automatically recognizes this div as a button. So that is exactly what is going on here. So let's see, and let's see what that looks like. So click me. This isn't styled at all. This is a div, but then it functions as a button. So let's go back and let's see what what this has to say. So it says when to use aerial label and role. When an element has no visible text but needs a descriptive label for screen readers, example icons, interactive SVGs, or custom controls. So a role, when you use a non-semantic HTML. So when using non-semantic HTML, we talked about semantic HTML before. Example, a div or a span to create a custom component. So it says when enhancing the default semantics of elements for specific use cases, e.g. a section, you say role navigation. So these are some of the best practices. So you can see nav, and then the role is navigation, aerial label main navigation. So you can see something like this. So role navigation explicitly marks the nav as a navigation landmark, and aerial label main navigation gives the landmark a clear name for screen readers. So this ensures a better experience for all users, especially those using assistive technology. So this is something that we want to, put into our, want to keep in mind and use. So we have this here. So let's see how it looks like. So we have so basically this is just trying to use like the semantic HTML semantics, and also trying to help screen readers utilize whatever content you put on your page. Alright, so previously we talked about the aerial label. So right now what we're going to talk about is local storage. So what is local storage? So here we have this is from ChatGPT. So here we have a button, and then we see on click, and then we have save to local. So here we have save to local storage. So basically what we need to understand about local storage is just like a storage where we get to store things. So here we are storing a string, and the string here is saying my web app. As you can see here, the string here is saying my web app. So here we just use this little method here, which is alert save to local storage. We haven't started working on JavaScript, so this is basically just we're just trying to understand how local storage works, but we haven't started any JavaScript yet. So basically this is just what we have here. So here we have function save to local storage. We have local storage as set item. So what are we setting an item for? We're setting the app name. So the app name is, we're going to give it my web app. And then so if you look here, we had on click here to be saved to local, and that is why the function here is saved to local. So we are calling this function on the on click event handler. So here we have the function which is saved to session, and then session storage, the set item, we have the session ID, and then we have 1 2 3 4 5. So we are storing this in our session storage, and here we are retrieving the data here, and the function is retrieve data. You can see this button here on click, retrieve data, and it comes local data. And then what we have is we have local storage dot get item, and here we have the app name. Here we have session data, we have session storage dot get item, we have the session ID. So we are getting the app name, and then we are getting session ID because we have the session ID to be here and then the app name to be here. So that is how when we're getting it, we are storing in a const, and so local data equals local storage dot get item app name, session data equals session storage dot get item, and then the session ID. So alert, then we pass in this into our alert. This is just a way to pass into it in JavaScript, and then we clear the storage. So to clear the storage, we say function clear storage. We have local storage dot clear, session storage dot clear, and then alert is all storage cleared. So having said all of that, that is what we have here. So if we come here to our, so let's just clear our storage because I've saved it before. So when we save it to local storage, it is saved in local storage, and when we save in session storage, we save in session storage. So when we retrieve the data, we have my web app and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think even when we refresh this page, what happens is that we might still be able to get that information. So even when we refresh the whole web page, we still have the stuff in local storage and also in session storage. So that is what we have here. So if that is that about local storage. I think that should be all about local storage. So let's see what ChatGPT has to say. So stores the local storage, saves the local storage, stores the value in local storage, saves the session storage, stores the value in session storage, retrieve data, displays both local and session storage values, clear storage, clears all data from both storages. So this example demonstrates how to use local storage and session storage effectively in a web application. So that is basically it, but let's see what this is. Session storage, temporary storage. Data is available for the duration of the page session. Once the tab or window is closed, the data is cleared. Storage limits similar to local storage, 5 to 10 MB depending on the browser. Scope, data is accessible only within a specific tab or window. Use cases, temporary user session data, e.g. form input, multi-step form data. So let's look at local storage. Persistent storage, data stored in local storage remains even after the browser is closed or device is restarted. So even when the browser is closed or device is restarted, what happens is that this stays the way it is. So storage limit typically up to 5 to 10 MB depending on the browser. Scope, we see that data is accessible across all tabs and windows for the same domain. Use cases, storing user preferences, e.g. that is example themes, caching non-sensitive application data. So local storage and session storage are part of the Web Storage API, providing a way to store data in the browser. They are often used to saving user preferences, session data, or any other information that needs to persist across web pages. So that is what local storage and session storage is all about. So in the next video, we'll see one more aspect of HTML. Alright, so in the previous video we made mention of local storage. In today's video we'll be looking at something much more interesting. So we'll be looking at some of these symbols. Let's see if we have it. Okay, yeah, we have it. So these symbols can be used, like for instance, if you are using the copy. If you are using the copy, it's very good, especially if for the copyright symbol. So you have this, and if you use this one, you have NBSP, you have for non-breaking spaces. So let's see how this integrates in our code. So we'll just open with live server. So this brings us to the end of HTML. So open with live server. So let's see what we have here. So it says server started at port 5000. So this is what we have. So this is the copyright symbol, and then this is what we have, and that is used for non-breaking space. So that is some of the things you're going to be using this when you are dealing with things like when you are in the footer of a web page, and then you have this like copyright, all right, result 2024. So the next video we're going to start with CSS, which is cascading style sheets, and we're going to see some of the very amazing ways we can use CSS to style our web page. Thank you for watching HTML, and this is the end of HTML. Alright, so we're going to start looking at things called global attributes, and what these are actually used for, or the importance of this, is to actually help us understand how we can style things in our CSS. So we are almost at the end of HTML, so we need to understand what IDs are for, and we need to also understand what classes are for. So I'm just going to give an idea of logo text, and I'm going to give a class of probably logo text as well. So, or just logo. So basically what we use this for is for when we are styling. So by having an ID and by having a class, we can style this. We can even use JavaScript to manipulate the DOM. By manipulating the DOM, we can say get element by ID, and we can use this to document or get element by ID, and we can, you know, attack this and style it. Alright, so we're going to look at how we can include what we call a fav icon. Now, a fav icon is simply, for example, whenever you visit a website, you're going to see at the tabs, or you're going to see in the tab or on the tab, you're going to see an icon, and that icon is going to represent the website or the logo of the website that you are in. Now, how we include this is by using the link rel, and this is going to be in between your opening header tag and your closing header tag, which we have here. So we have link, and then we have rel, we have icon, and then we put in the href, and then inside of that we're going to say favicon.png, and then the type is going to be image/png. But the thing is that we don't have a fav icon yet, we don't have an icon yet, so we're just going to have to figure out how we can get an icon. So by getting an icon, then we can place it inside the href, and then by placing it inside of the href, we see that we have that logo at the tab. So let's just try to figure it out. And the first thing we're going to do here is, so we just have the downloads, and so basically what I'm just going to do is try to get a photo that we can use as favicon, and I think we already have one, so I'm just going to move it right inside the images folder. So this is exactly what we're going to use as favicon, because this is just for explanation purpose. We're not really making a real website here. This is just for the course. So here, instead of the favicon.png, I'm just going to include what we have there. So what do we have there? So here we're just going to I'm just going to change it to pixel.jpg, and remember that this is a JPEG file, so we're just going to use the image/JPEG. So I'm just going to have to figure that out first of all, because I'm not 100% sure if that is what we're going to use here. So I'm just going to quickly go over and check. So I'm just going to check right on Google, and I'm just going to see. So here now, the first thing I'm just going to do here is I'm going to say I'm just going to ask that what if this file, I'm going to add ChatGPT, and I'm going to say what if this file was a JPEG file. So how are we going to use so if you can even see what I'm doing here. So we have favicon.svg, and the type is image/svg/xml. You can put that down. And if you have favicon.ico, the type is image/x hyphen icon. So you can quickly put that down if you have a pen, or a biro, or just pause the video and check that out. So here we have link rel icon href favicon.jpg, so the type is going to be image/jpeg. So I was right before. So here I'm just going to have /jpeg, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I'm just going to look at it, and then this is exactly what we have. So the next thing I'm just going to do is to just open with live server. So by opening with live server, we're just going to see, so we don't have any changes yet, but I think I need to refresh the page and try and see why we don't have that. So I think the mistake that I made here was the pixel.jpg. We're not supposed to use just the pixel.jpg. Actually, we're supposed to find it in the images directory. It's supposed to be /image/ the stuff. So I think that is exactly when I'm getting confused here. So I'm just going to see, I'm trying to open with live server again to see if it can work. So it doesn't work. So since it's not working, we're just going to go, and then in the href, let's see what we're going to include in the href to make sure that this works. We're going to say /, and then we click on the images, and then we have the pixel.jpg, and then when we hit save and come to our Chrome, and then we reload this, what we're going to get is, now we can see that we have that favicon at the top, and that favicon is what we actually need. So the next thing we're going to do here is, now that we have that, I think that is all, and this is how you add a favicon into your into your HTML. Alright, so let's just look at so we are almost at the end of our HTML course, And if you've come this far, then your HTML should be very great, which means that you are now ready to start CSS. Now CSS might not be available now, but we'll be getting on to CSS very soon. Just join the waiting list, and by March CSS will be available. So we have p tag, which is, so we're going to style this p tag, and then when we style it, we're going to give it a color of blue, and then we're going to have a font size of, we're just going to have a font size of 18 pixel. Now what we're going to do here is, so we have the style, we have color, and then this, so basically this is how we style things in line. So this is like CSS, but then we're using this style, we're using the style property, which gives us, we have an apostrophe, then color, blue, and font size 18 pixel. So just follow the syntax, try to write it down, and then follow it exactly how it is, and you should be able to get it. So this is exactly how it is. So we're just going to check and see how this, how this looks like when we give this this style attribute to our text. So let's just see how it looks like. So this text is blue, so let's now see how this is going to be. So we have, so just this is exactly what we have, and the next thing we're going to do here is, so we have the style, color, blue, font size 18 pixels. So now let's check and let's see what we have here. So I'm just going to check my document, and you can see that it says here this text is blue. So that's exactly what we have there. So this is so let's just give it another color and let's see. So here I'm just going to write purple, and then by giving it purple, we have this text is what, blue. So that is exactly what we have there. And alright guys, alright, so we've come, this is the last video on HTML5, and we've come so far, and I am really happy. So what we're going to be talking about is, we're going to be talking about something called a title. And by giving a title, you can see here that I've already written it out, but I commented it out so that it doesn't show in our browser. But what we have here, we're going to create a button. So by creating a button, the next thing we're going to do right inside of that button is we're going to create a title. So that title, we're just going to say, I'm just going to say click to submit the form. So by using this, what we now need to understand is that by using this, I'm just going to say submit, and then when I say submit, we can simply just have that. So button title, click to submit the form, and then we have submit. So when we have this, the next thing we're just going to see now here is, so we have something like this. So let's now see what this is going to give to us. So we hover right, and we don't get anything yet, but if we are patient enough, we start getting things. So the next thing we're going to do here now is, so say click to submit the form. So title is click to submit the form. So as you can see here, let's just be patient, it's going to work. Okay, so I don't think I'm hovering on it properly, but I'm going to try to do that now. So I'm just trying to cross check to see if I didn't make any mistakes. So button title, click to submit the form, it should show a tooltip. So let's just comment what I did, and let's just uncomment what we did before, and then I hover right, and let's see. Yeah, you can see it. Where did it go? So you can see that when it is being hovered on, it shows what it wants to do. So it's a click to submit the form. So that is exactly what it is doing. So this is exactly what we have, and yeah. So yeah, we've come to the end of HTML5, and it has been a journey so far, but I hope you enjoyed every aspect of the video, and make sure you hit a thumbs up and a subscribe, and